Hi guys, I'm back. So today I'm gonna share with you guys 5 reasons why I'm choosing the UK route instead of the USMLE route, and why I'm taking the Plab instead of the STEP exams. So let's start. Reason number 1. The Plab exams are way easier than the USMLE STEP exams. So if you're gonna take the USMLE, the first exam you have to take is Step 1, and many people already know this, but Step 1 exam takes a long time to prepare because the topics they cover include anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, pathology, histology, you name it, like all the topics that you've studied earlier in med school, like earlier years in med school, you have to know all of them and study all of them, so it takes a while to prepare for them. And plus, you not only have to pass the exam, you have to do well. I mean, things are changing now, so we don't know what's gonna happen in the coming years, but as of now, you have to get a good score in order to be considered a competitive candidate. While as for the Plabs, Plab 1, they only have, the topics they cover are extremely clinical, so they focus mainly on medicine, and the rest are like surgery, pediatrics, obstetrics and gynecology, ENT, but they're extremely clinical and much more doable than the Step 1 exam. And if you think about it, the exam itself, the Plab 1 lasts only for 3 hours, and they give you 180 multiple choice questions, while for Step 1, it lasts for like 7 to 8 hours because you have like an hour break in between, but you have to answer more than 280 questions in that amount of time in one day. And so it's really long and grueling, and you need that much focus and concentration on like that single day in order to do well after like preparing for all those months. So if you compare the two, obviously 3 hours, 7 to 8 hours, lesser topics and more straightforward, and like all these comprehensive topics even from earlier years you have to review, and months of preparation. Like Plab 1, it's known that 2 months of review is good enough and you can be ready for it, and people pass. Like my alumni, people who graduated from my school, like all the people who took Plab 1 passed without failing on their first try, and they also reported it being easy for them. Reason number 2. So, as mentioned in my reason number 1, Plab 1 is easier, and taking the Plab exams are easier. And so, reason number 2 is the whole process takes shorter amount of time. So, for the Plabs, there's Plab 1 and Plab 2. For the steps, you have Step 1, Step 2, C, K, and C, S. So there are 3 exams, and it's harder, so it takes longer to prepare to get the score you want and to review all those materials. Meanwhile, it takes a lot shorter to take these exams and proceed on to the next step, like take the Plab 2 after passing the Plab 1. And then after passing the Plab 1, you can already apply to the hospitals you want, register via GMC, and so you can already register and apply to the hospitals you want. And so usually it takes, to clear the STEP exams, usually people take, as an IMG, International Medical Graduate, it takes people around 2 years to clear it, and then so until they match, it takes 2 or more years in order for them to match. While if you go the Plab route, it takes a year, sometimes less than a year even, after you graduate. I guess after you take the board exams here in the Philippines, it takes about a year before you actually can start working in a hospital, like be accepted and start working in the hospital. So that's reason number 2. It takes way shorter amount of time, like 2 years or more, and like 1 year or less. So of course you want to save time, and so it's extremely advantageous to go this way if you want to save time, and time is an important matter for you. Yeah. Reason number 3. So reason number 3 is the cost. Overall cost. It costs a lot less money to go this route, to go to UK, instead of going to the US, because if you compare the cost of the exams, UK Plabs are cheaper overall if you're taking Plab 1 and Plab 2, and then even if you include the IELTS exam, those 3, it costs this much, while if you take the USMLE and Step 1, Step 2 CK and CS, it costs this much. So if you compare these two, this costs less. And plus, when you're applying to the hospitals, as an international medical graduate, they recommend, for US, they recommend that you have to apply to at least 200 hospitals. And every hospital you apply to, there is an application fee that comes with it. And so the more hospitals you apply to, there's like higher, you have to pay that much more. And plus, when you get accepted into a hospital, or you're invited for an interview, you have to fly to that place, to that state. And if of course if you applied like across the country, you have to fly to different places, and the airfare and like the stay will cost you a lot of money. Meanwhile, if you apply to UK, usually people apply to the hospitals in and around London, and applying to hospitals don't cost money. And so you can apply to a lot of hospitals through the Oriel, and you won't have to pay more money per more hospitals you apply to doesn't mean more money. And so the overall cost is significantly reduced for taking the Plabs and going to UK versus taking the steps and going to the US, or trying to match in the US. So yeah, overall cost, of course, expenses are extremely important, right? So yeah. Reason number 4 is specialty of choice. So as an international medical graduate, you'll know that if you're planning to apply to United States for residency, most people apply for internal medicine or pediatrics or pathology. I've seen a lot of people apply to pathology as well, because those are the specialties that are easier to get into. And it's known that surgical specialties are like almost impossible to get into because it's so competitive even within the US. And so as an IMG, you pretty much have nil to like maybe negative, like you have a really low chance of getting into surgical specialties. And so the specialties that you can apply to are also limited. I mean, it's great for you if you love internal medicine and that's where you're heading towards. But for people who are into surgical specialties like me, like myself, it's kind of hard because, like, of course, that's what you want to do, but you know that the chances are very, very slim. And so it's great that for UK, yes, surgical specialties are more competitive than internal medicine, definitely, but the difference between the two, it's not very big, and you have a really good chance of getting to surgical specialties as well. Like, for instance, I have a friend who graduated from my school, and she is currently a vascular surgery in UK, and she's doing great, she's doing well, and she easily got into that specialty as well. So you can already see and say that getting into the specialty you want is a lot easier if you go to UK as opposed to going to US. So that's the number 4 reason, which I think it's extremely important, because it's something you'll be doing for the rest of your life, and of course you want to be loving what you're doing and not hating or regretting going into that specific specialty, that particular specialty. Yeah. So reason number 5. So think about the healthcare system. I know each country has their own healthcare system, and they have pros and cons towards it. But if you think about your own health, where would you want to be? Like if you get sick, where would you want to be? So if you think about it, I initially didn't think about this factor, but one of my friends mentioned it, and I realized like, oh yeah, that's true. That's very true. Like for yourself or for your loved ones, if you're bringing someone with you, of course you want to have access to good healthcare system, and if you go to UK, you have access to free healthcare. You have free access to their national health service, the NHS. It's free. Yes, free. Free. So as opposed to if you go to US, you have to get an insurance card and you have to have healthcare insurance in order to have better access and better pricing, to have that service available for you. And people are usually scared to go to the hospital because they know that it costs a lot of money, and so of course that's a big factor. For me, it's a big factor because of course your health is important. If something happens, because of course life is unpredictable, and you always want to be prepared and ready for anything that can come at you, right? So that's the number 5 reason. Other reasons, it's like etc. reasons. There are the system itself, their labor law and how things work there provides you with a better work-life balance as a doctor, and I can actually observe that or see that through my friend who's already there. She's been there. She's been working in the hospital in UK as a doctor for around 2 years now, and in 1 year she was actually able to visit the Philippines and her family twice, and that says a lot about how much leave you can have and how much time you can have in order to spend time with your family, and visit your family if you are from another country. And so that's another benefit. And you also have opportunities to travel within Europe. I mean, there are a lot of restrictions right now, so that's a little difficult at the moment, but in the future it's going to be easier to move around and travel and see the world. And because it provides you with better work-life balance, it will also allow you to do other things, other hobbies that you have, and enjoy them. Yeah. So I have an update. So I told you guys last week that I will be taking the IELTS exam in about 2 weeks, and I'm actually supposed to take it next week Friday, but British Council emailed me yesterday and told me that the exam is cancelled because according to the government, they are not allowed to open the testing center under the general community quarantine, which is what Metro Manila is under right now, that they can only open the testing centers if they are under the modified general community quarantine, which is the next more like lenient step. And I'm not so sure when the government will allow us to be under that. So I'm currently thinking if I should just get a refund and take it in Korea instead, because I'm going to Korea next month. So yeah, I'll give you an update as things come along and change and stuff. Yeah. So thanks for watching. If you learned anything from my video and liked it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you again next week.